Hi everybody, welcome to my channel Blue Lotus. My name is Cindy. I am an energetic stepping and wholeness counselor. I work together with spirit very closely. I work with my own spirit team Carla, and they are here for guiding us through the 3D, 5D perspective and helping us when it comes to our mental health. I also give sound treatments. The way that I'm doing it is by using my own voice and my own crystals. The method is called Sacred Crystal Sound. I do this in person, but also on a distance. And this evening, I am joined by Jamin Olivencia. Thank you, Jamin, for being here. Jamin and I know each other for 2 years, although it feels much longer than that. We have been having conversations, sharing our own perspectives, and just seeing how we are looking at life from a different point of view based on our own life experiences. So we are both helping people, guiding them through their own daily lives. And I think the interesting part is that we, of course, are both different genders, but we grew up in different continents and also have cultural background differences. So I think in that kind of way, I think we have to like very nice conversations together and can share our perspectives. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree, and thanks for having me be a part of this process and these projects and whatever it is that you want to aspire to be, and whatever it's like the idea is always to kind of just keep bringing it in the conversation and keep on growing and keep on doing better, and so just thanks for like holding the space for me to kind of get out who I am a little bit more, and you doing the same. So it's a really cool process to be a part of. But what I think is like in regards to perspectives, and like they're like filters to me, and everyone, no matter where you are, where you're coming from, good or bad, this or that, you have a perspective, and you have a perspective that can heal somebody. You have a perspective that can make someone feel maybe not so good, but either way serving growth for both parties, and I guess what's part of my filter and who I am, and when I think about this subject in general and life and whatever, we don't know, so we're just kind of talking about it. But like, for me, what really resonates is like using the perspectives of others to grow yourself. That's why you have friends, and that's why you communicate with people, and all these things. And so there's a lot of good stuff that comes from sharing perspectives, especially when it's focused towards optimistic optimism and bettering yourself and who you are. And so that's like my rant, like when I think about that, because it's like, I don't know, I just think that's a really important thing. All the people in my life that have shaped me to who I am is because they've given me perspectives that I valued and that I would listen to, and that would change my life. And it wasn't about like even getting the answer, but it was just their own authenticity being in my life that gives me, and I'm not even going to talk about friends. We'll say just strangers too. Anybody. That's how this stuff kind of works. So or at least that's how I see it right now. But it's kind of cool. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool, and that's what I think about.
Yeah, I like that, because I don't know. I like talking to people, and sometimes what you're saying, like I talk to, at least in my case, I talk to strangers when I'm outside on a park bench. There's an old lady sitting beside me and starts to share her own life experience. I like to listen to that, because what you're saying, you get a completely different perspective. You have, you get another view from a different point of view, of course, what you have not experienced yourself, because everybody has their own experiences, and that can get us like open-minded and open up the other area.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's an open-mindedness is a choice, right? Like that's open-mindedness. Let's be honest, we're not always open-minded to certain things, and there's certain things that make us feel uncomfortable. But then when like you kind of like start to see that over time, you start to change your perspective on that. Even you're like, oh, I don't take that so seriously, or oh, I don't know, it's just life. It's funny because when we're having conversations about things like this, it's so complex and there's so many feelings that I have and so many words I'd like to say it in, but really it's a bunch of colors all mixed up. And it's really cool when you could identify certain things and try certain things and experiment with certain things, such as perspectives or even the things that make you uncomfortable and have feelings about it and go through those feelings. But most importantly, at least the way I see it, is like really sharing it with people and
Mm-hmm.
sharing your insights in that. And I don't know, I find it to be really cool. I really do. I just Life is so cool, isn't it?
It
Like
is.
anybody that's even listening, like I would like invite you to like kind of think about that, like kind of fucking cool. I don't know. We're alive, and excuse my language, but like we're alive, and that's kind of cool. It's a very complex thing, and
Yeah.
when I think about life and even have this conversation with anybody, like I'm always thinking about like it's either this way or this way, and it is what it is, and you just fight through it and you just do it. And I think that's a really beautiful process. Life is art in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Talking about fighting, you started out as a professional wrestler. How did
yeah,
you come to that choice?
yeah. Wrestling was something that I just knew I was gonna do. When you talk about like the spiritual path or something, like that's what I think about. I think about what wrestling was, because wrestling at a very young age, and I might be butchering it. I don't know. Maybe I was 3 or 4, but I knew I saw it on TV, and I had a vision of myself doing it.
Mm,
I actually like saw it, and it was kind of already like done from there. I already knew that's what I was going to do. It was like something that I just remember. It was like an early childhood memory where I just remember it. And yeah, you talk about like law of attraction and stuff. I guess I did it. I was obsessed with wrestling. I grew up in special ed classes. I struggled, and I think back to why did you struggle? Was it because you weren't really paying attention? Were you not comprehending? Well, those are probably some of them, but really, I was imagining being a pro wrestler all the time. If I
mm,
failed the test, I would imagine that I was losing in a match. Like it was like so literal to me. And I don't know, there was something about pro wrestling that kind of like fascinated me. It was like watching comic book characters come to life. They were larger than life, and I guess because I must have been so insecure when I think about it as a kid. I wanted to emulate those guys. I wanted
mm.
to be strong, and I wanted to be the man or whatever. And because that was so inside me, yeah, wrestling ended up kind of just happening to me when a buddy came up to me in high school and he said, "Hey, there's this like local wrestling school. Do you want to like we should go like be a part of it? Like this is our chance." And I was like, "Holy shit! Like everything that I've ever dreamed about. Now we have a local wrestling school." So I begged my mom to sign me up. I was 17, so I wasn't old enough yet, but she signed me up, and I I don't know, it was a done deal. And I remember when I got into it, I was I don't want to brag, but I was very natural at it. And it's because I
Mm-hmm.
obsessed about it so much my whole entire life. It was such a big part of me. So yeah, how I got into it was this local wrestling school called ESW, Empire State Wrestling. Shout out to them because they're still running, and hopefully, after this pandemic, they will be too. But like, they just have been killing it over the years. We were drawing so many people when we first started. Like, okay, so most independent wrestling companies outside of WWE. At that time, we're drawing like a few hundred people. Sometimes shows were like 20 people, but here in this particular independent show I wrestled at, it always drew a good amount of people, 400 people, 500 people. There was always a lot. And I'm really grateful to that because I know a lot of guys didn't get those experiences when they first started, but that was
Mm,
like, for me, that was like a good ground to like gauge, like when you perform in front of a few hundred people a few times, you get this like sense of audience. And I don't know, to put that to life for the first time was like so incredible for me. And yeah, shortly after that, I went to Ohio Valley Wrestling, which was the developmental territory for WWE. and made my dreams come true from there. And it was just a really like, yeah, that's how I did it. And it's funny because I'm not wrestling per se anymore. And it's
Mm.
because wrestling, I realized over time, was a catalyst for me to understand more of me now. And that's an interesting thing, because back then it was such purpose for that. And then you get there and you do your thing, but then there's always more. And I think that's interesting. And that's obviously what brings us, I guess, to this conversation, or
Yeah.
even talking about life in general, you know?
Yeah, I don't look at like past life experience as something bad, or that I have regrets or something. I look at it as more, these are all experiences that let me evolve, and all
Yeah.
like learnings for me, saying like, oh, I've done it in the past, it didn't work out, let me try something else. It is not, I don't know. I think we have learned as well just to see if things that when things are not working out, is being like, oh, you have made this mistake, or you should not have done that. But there's not really like a wrong thing, at least not in my eyes, because there
Yeah. That's
at the moment that when you are like in a situation, you're going to choose something that feels good to you, at least, or maybe like as in you're doing the utmost best that you can do at that specific moment.
100%. And I 110% agree with you. And that's a really interesting thought process you have. Um, because a lot of us are very reactionary emotionally towards certain things. And I think to develop a skill in that is very interesting. So I'm kind of curious, like, how do you develop that? How did you develop that? Because that's an interesting, because it's not that, because you know how, because you still feel things real, you know what I'm saying? So I guess my question to you is more like, when you can look at it just as an experience, it is what it is, which is a great perspective. Um, are you able to transcend the emotion of it?
Well, oh, I okay, at the moment when I decide something and it feels good to me, no matter what it is, I will go for it. But then you will get, of course, sometimes unasked advice or perspectives, judgments from others that sometimes make me insecure, like, oh, maybe I should not have done that. But in the moment itself, it felt good to me because it felt right to me. For
Got it.
me, for me, like when I did stuff, it is for me, it was like finding out, like, does it fit me or not? I only will find out, I'm actually going to try. If I'm not trying, I will not find out if it's something that fits me or not. So that's why I went ahead. And not everyone can understand that, or maybe, because of everybody has their own opinion and their own life experiences, they see it from their own perspective. And they say like, hey, you should not have done that, or maybe it was better to do that. And then these kind of, feedback can make a person, or like myself, can make yourself insecure.
The narratives you tell yourself, yeah, it's an interesting, it's that's the beauty of perspectives, and also sometimes the,
Not
but
so
that's
much.
like anything, isn't it? It's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so that balance, finding that balance is interesting. And I think that's a cool perspective. I think it's really important to follow what feels right. You know, what's interesting about life is you do so many things that are contradicting.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever find yourself judgmental, you'll find that, like, it's usually because you've been like that. You know what I mean? You're
Yes.
acting with certain things, and I don't know. It's a very interesting. It takes a unique strength and courage to admit those things, and then see them, and then work on them, and that's why I like talking so much. I think that's why I enjoy having deep conversations with any human. Like,
Mm-hmm.
could be a gas station clerk. I'll talk to you for 20 minutes if I get the chance. I'm so curious, because it's there's so many ways to look at this shit,
Yeah.
and but it's cool when you could. It is cool though. I do admire, once again, the perspective you had though when it comes to being able to just do the best you can in that moment, and that's all it is, and it is what it is, and you move on. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes it rains, sometimes it's sunny, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. It's interesting, but but once again, when it's part of the conversation, now we have a unique ability to be able to recognize certain patterns we have within if we're talking about it. You know, if my conversation's constantly about, I don't know, the football game or like anything, I don't know, where it's constant like that, you kind of forget yourself in the process, and
Oh yeah.
maybe become a product of your environment. Maybe, I don't know. You know, it's just fun to talk about because we
Hmm.
might catch something, you
Yeah.
know?
That's why I like asking questions. I remember when I was younger, I was asking everybody a lot of questions until I constantly heard that I should not ask any questions. So I stopped. But for me, asking questions is not to, to annoy someone else. It is for me trying to understand the other person and just to see like, am I thinking in the same way, or in what way is it different? But it's also at the same time to help the other person to come to their own realization or their own self-awareness.
Yeah, everyone's on this unique. What's interesting about it is everyone's on this unique like path where it's only accustomed to the way you need to learn it. Like it's a really interesting. It's also interesting to me. This is why I love life. I could sit
Mm-hmm.
here and just have a fucking chat with a human about a bunch of shit we don't know about.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of meaning in that, because then you're looking at your life in a maybe more unique way. I don't know. It's life is, there's so many perspectives, but
Mm-hmm.
it's all overall it's pretty cool. You know, I mean, wrestling for me was that thing that felt so right. It felt, I knew I was going to be a wrestler. That's all there is to it. Everyone told me I wasn't going to do it. I was the kid that did it. But like, it wasn't even about shoving it up their ass. I was never even like that. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to show them. It was like, really? You don't think so? I just believe in it. I don't know. Like, I remember having this like such genuine knowing and feeling that I was going to do it. And whether I did, and even if I didn't do it, I'm, you know, it's like the inspiration of it is designed to put you in a certain spot in life, just like anything we do, or so it seems. You, people come in your life for a particular reason, they dance around you for a minute and then they go, and you know, some of us take it personal, some of us don't, some, you know, but yet
Yeah.
all playing intricate roles. Even if you take it personal, they're, that feeling they gave you was something you needed probably, you know. And it's really interesting. It's interesting, and that goes into kind of like what we were kind of saying about perspectives, and having different unique filters to look through can be really cool and important. And if you have an idea about a little bit of all of them, then there's maybe less chaos in your world, because then
Mm-hmm.
you're not, because then you're understanding that's the jungle you're in, versus why is this happening to me type thing. And interesting stuff.
Okay, I understand. You're like saying like looking at yourself as a victim, saying like, "Oh, this happened to me again."
Yeah, and yeah, and maybe I shouldn't make it just about that, but I guess when I have these conversations, I think for me it's important to highlight these thought processes we have, because sometimes we hold ourselves back. You know, as
Mm-hmm.
a kid who struggled a lot, I held myself back in the way I thought. And I used to say I was stupid. I couldn't tell you how many times I would go home crying. Couldn't tell you how many times I'd go home crying because I was asked to read out loud, couldn't read. I felt fucking stupid, all this shit, you know, and it was hard for me. And so I think one of the things I continue to develop as a human is an optimistic approach to each day, even if it doesn't go that way. It's like this sense of like, even if I have a day that seems cloudy, I literally will say to myself, hey, life, just thanks for this day anyway. Even though I'm feeling down, thanks for this day anyway. I don't have as much energy behind it or whatever, but like I have this sense of like, hey, thanks for today anyway. You know, I don't know. There's something about when you approach things in a optimistic point of view. Like my mom, she would always drill into my head as a kid, because she knew about my insecurities. She would say, hey, like, don't tell yourself you're gonna have a perfect day. Just say you're gonna be the best you can today. Just try to be
Mm-hmm.
the best you can today. And I don't know. I would, at first I would resist that. I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. I get it. Your little motivation stuff, I get it. But then I actually started doing it. where when I would wake up, instead of saying like, ugh, I don't want to get out of bed, I would literally say like, all right, I'm just gonna be the best I can today. I was still tired, still felt like shit, but I still like, I had this sense of like, yeah, I'm just gonna be the best I can. And then all of a sudden the day got better. And then all of a sudden
Mm.
I did it the next day, and all of a sudden, and so what the reason why I guess I was focusing on that, which is interesting, is that you I feel like this type of work can be done in all of us constantly, where we don't where we can hurt less of each other, because most of the reason why we're hurting each other is really because we're just hurt, or we're feeling something that we've been holding on to. And I don't know, I just think it's really important to bring that in the conversation while we're just sitting here talking. This is what I think about. This is the kind of shit I think about. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, how can I be a better dude today? I know I'm not a perfect dude, and I would never even claim it. Like,
Mm.
we're all pretty complex,
Yeah.
and nobody really knows you but you. And if you understand that, and you understand a little bit of the animal you are, just a little bit of the animal, it's a wild horse. So to bring this to the conversation as a reminder, because it's easy for all of us to forget this, that yeah, um, it's really important to set your mind in an optimistic type of way. I really believe that. I think it's why I got in wrestling. Like, I knew, I tell you what, I wasn't optimistic about a lot of things, but I was optimistic about that.
Mm.
Maybe, it's like, it's an interesting, it thoughts are like energy, or they are. And how you use your imagination, how you wield it, is definitely gonna play a role in how you feel. And so, yeah, got to talk about this shit because I think it's important.
Oh yeah, it is. And
Yeah, yeah,
so I remember the first time when I started to meditate, and then I did not like to meditate at all because a lot of thoughts were coming up. And then I was like, I don't like meditating. I can only do it. I cannot even do it for 5 minutes. And then I said to someone, I've got so many thoughts coming up. And then the person said like, well, you are not creating these. You already had those. You're only becoming aware of the thoughts because your mind became more quiet. You're actually getting
yeah.
still. And then you let your thoughts coming up and you become aware of them. And I was like, no, it cannot be that I've had so many thoughts already and that I'm only just become aware of it right now. You, in the beginning, you really see it yourself like, no, I know what I'm thinking, I'm aware all the time, I'm conscious. But as soon as you start to quiet down your mind, you really start to understand. Actually, you start to notice what you're thinking and how much is there in your head.
Yeah, it's really an uncomfortable feeling too in the beginning, right? Like when
Yes,
you
like what you said, like you have to admit it as well to yourself.
when you reflect, that's the one thing we avoid as humans, is that part. What's funny to me is like, let's just say you have a problem with someone at work. Let's just say, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a scenario. This is the best scenario I can come up with. You have a problem with somebody at work. You guys don't get along. Maybe you need to have a talk with them. Maybe that would actually solve the problem. But yet, instead of doing the thing that's necessary, we as humans avoid it because of fear or whatever, or uncomfortable, having the uncomfortable conversation, we'll say. And you'll do even weirder shit around that.
Hmm.
Things that are so complex and weird, the way you like play these games, and it's like all this effort instead of just saying, hey, we have a difference, let's, maybe we can resolve this. It's like, really, it could be done in like 20 minutes, probably 15 minutes, probably, where it doesn't have to be like your best friends, but you can at least learn like that it doesn't have to be so hostile sometimes. But the things that the games they'll play around that thing that they need to do is absolutely bonkers. So that's
Yeah.
how complex we are as humans. That's what I think about. And it's like, wow. So it's a, I guess I was losing a little bit of my thought process here, but it goes back into just the complexity of us, and to really understand that animal that you are, understand you. It's important to reflect. Oh, going back to reflection, that's what I was saying. So reflecting being this, for me, like, when I go to bed at night, I really try to do this. Like, I'll say my prayer, but I'll think like I'll think about just the day and how I was being. And it's like, and I'll start to kind of like, and then I'll see certain things that it could be like simple conversations where maybe, I don't know, I was aggressive with somebody and I didn't need to be, or I don't know, like you just think about these little things, but then you get the sense of feeling uncomfortable.
Mm.
And that is a good feeling. But yet we say it's bad, but it's such a good fucking feeling, because when you're uncomfortable, that's how you're forced to evolve. It's like shedding skin, you know. Um, Once again, it's like, that's a beautiful thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
always beautiful. It's really hard to see that sometimes, and I get that, but it really is. It's a really
Mm.
beautiful thing. It's freaking cool. Where else can you go and like just even this, like just do this, like with your hand, your fucking hand, like just move it. It's a fascinating thing. Why can't we be optimistic? It's like, I get it. It's tough. Everyone's different once again. So as I'm sitting here and talking on my soapbox about what I think it should be or how it could be or this or that, the thing I really understand too is that not everyone's in that position, and everyone has different nuances in their life that have created them to be who they are. And that's a unique thing too, you know, and respecting those perspectives, you know,
Mm.
maybe we'd be less judgmental if we really understood, you know, or not understood, but at least try to have some empathy, try to put yourself in someone else's shoes where they could. I try to do that often. Even if I
Mm.
know I'm being wrong in a situation, I'll try to look and see if I'm being reasonable. I'm like, am I really being reasonable here? Oh, maybe I'm not. But
Yeah.
there's growth from that and healing. So wrestling inspires this out of me to have these conversations for some reason,
Mm.
because my experience have been up and down. I've tried myself as an athlete. I've tried myself mentally as a human. I tried myself as a human that was an athlete that had a fucking crazy ego that had to like you just experience so many different things, but yet all making you who you are. And when I think about wrestling, when you ask me about wrestling, I guess that was like going back to the original thing. Wrestling has done so much for me, like given me the confidence that I didn't have, because I had to learn how to be a performer. I knew I
Mm.
wanted to do it, but then you have to learn how to perform and like talk. And I never had a good vocabulary, but then all of a sudden I'm developing it, not noticing I'm developing it. You know what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah.
takes years and years of hard work and stress, and that's what makes it so beautiful. That's why I sit here and I'm just excited to have this conversation, and I don't even care if it makes sense or not, because I
Mm-hmm.
just know it's so meaningful to just express that.
Yeah.
It feels good to express that. Yeah.
So when you were a child and you said like you had a lot of insecurities, were you able to find a way how to put that insecurity into like to the wrestling? Did it help you in a way?
So I feel like there's like multiple things that come to mind. For me, out of body experiences gave me a confidence.
Mm.
So the physical world I was afraid of. I was so I To give context, I guess, I used to, or still do, really, but I used to have when I say used to, and I hate the term out of body, but I used to just dream. I use the term dream; it just feels better. But it's out of body. Essentially, when you leave your body and you're flying, or you turn around, you see yourself. It's things like that. For me, it's always kind of been a very natural occurrence. As I gotten older, the things have changed in certain ways, and it's because I think I've understood certain laws for myself, not for the universe and what I think it is, but laws for myself of how to navigate these waters when I am experiencing that. And what out of body experiences gave me at a very young age was a lot of fucking fear. I actually used to be afraid to go to bed at night.
Mm.
I was like, I'm gonna have this night terror where I would see the shadow figure and it's gonna choke me. And I would have all these, like, I'd have real anxiety going to bed. And I it got to a point where, after years and years of experiencing this out of fear, I remember one time I told my mom about it. My mom was like, "Hey, just like stare at it." And I'm like, "Yeah, easy for you to say." And then then I had that experience, I had that one experience where it came consciously to me in the experience where it's like, hey, just stare at this. And I was looking at this Doberman Pinscher looking dog thing. It was like drooling. It looked like a devil. It was really like a devil dog or something. But yeah, I saw it just drooling, and I started to stare at it. And then I got so curious because I realized, wow, this is like just an image. And the minute I had this thought, like, are you real? I remember it like disintegrated in front of me. And that was a powerful moment for me, because what I started to understand when I would have those experiences is I started to control how I felt in those situations. Now, in school and stuff, I couldn't really control it because I was that insecure. It was like, the pressure of people and having a crush on a girl, and does she like me? And you know what I mean? Like, I have no chance with her. I can't even say hi to her. Or like, it was making friends or whatever the hell it was. It was all too much pressure, I think, to overcome at a young age when you didn't have much in your toolbox when it came to communication as it is. So these experiences gave me more of a knowing type of sensation, where when things started to change in that way, I started to like understand like these laws that work in my life. And one of those things where it kind of coincides with what my mom said, and I was mentioning it earlier, was she would just tell me to be the best I can. So it's a very simple thing, and I'm not saying this would work for anybody, but it was, instead of like complaining, I would literally just say, hey, I'm going to be the best I can. And I might still say it even a little aggravated, but yet when I would do it, the whole paradigm would change in front of me. There'd be this whole entire shift. And that was very similar to out of body exploration for me. That feeling of, I changed my mind and this happened. Where when you're outside your body, you change your mind, it instantly happens. When you change your mind in the body, it takes some time. So it seems to me, this is just my opinion. I'm not but I've had so many of these experiences. This is the law I discovered about myself, these laws. I say laws, but I guess they're laws because it's a way I approach things that helps me kind of navigate this world. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But once again, out of body experiences gave me this like confidence, where when I started getting into like teenage years, I was like filming me and my cousin like wrestling back in the backyard and shit. And we do the dumbest shit. I was thinking back right now on it, like jump off the shed onto a table, smash through. And it never really hurt, but like, it's really crazy shit. Like, it's stupid stuff. And we'd film it, but we were so like excited. And yeah, I don't know, like, then you're developing this different type of confidence. I didn't care if I had friends or not. It got to like a different level. I started opening up more in high school as time went on, but it was like, it turned into this, like, I don't know, like I started working out. This is all, I don't know. That's how my confidence started to kind of rise into wrestling though. So when I took all that, I got a lot of piss and vinegar in me still from when I was a kid, like, and I understand that may never go away, but I use it as an empowerment tool to keep me like happy. Like, I enjoy life at the end of the day. Yes, I have my bad days, but even when I have my bad days, I literally roll my eyes. I'm like, okay, you're just kind of complaining. Like, it's not that bad,
Yeah.
So it's this is how I developed it, I guess. I don't know if that answered your question, but because when I talk like this, I tailspin into so many different archetypes of thoughts, of feelings that have made me who I am. I understand that if we stop this interview now and then we start the interview all over again and the conversation would be so different.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be better or worse. It'd just be so different. Maybe I say things differently, but it's like this, you know what I mean? Life is so like, yeah.
So when did these out of body experiences happen to you?
Oh man.
I mean, or
as
how
long,
actually?
as long as I can remember, probably 4 or 5, if I had to put a number on it. What was your question? I'm sorry, other than that?
Oh, like how? How did you come to those? This is like naturally develop or?
Yeah, I would say so. And my theory, I've toggled with this for a long time. my theory is, I think I was so insecure as a kid that it's like energy work. Like when you, so I, this is my opinion, but like, so because of out of body experiences, I don't have a belief system where like negative things attach to me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe in that. I think that's actually your thoughts attaching to you. And that's the negative energy you see, but not a literal form that is evil and it's here to corrupt you. Like I literally think, because, and the reason why I say that is because of out of bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And out of body experiences, what I experience through any type of thought process is immediate. It's not like, if I see a thing that looks ugly to me or devilish or whatever, and I perceive it as evil, it will be evil. And if I look at this and perceive it as an angel or something that can assist me, it just assists me. I notice it every time. I don't think I've ever, I learned that over time, but this is just for me. So I don't want to, I know everyone has their own experiences. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying this from my point of view,
Yeah.
but how this translates is it goes into the way I was thinking as a kid too, because I was so fearful. I was attracting all this negative energy, right? We'll call it negative energy, I suppose. But it was really just me attracting my own nightmares and creating them and watching them. Where those were beneficial to me is that they obviously gave me the courage to eventually notice it was just me doing it all along. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's, for me, that's where I started to notice it was all on how you change your attitude.
Mm-hmm.
I notice, I can differentiate these from the way I'm thinking. I know when things happen to me in my life that are not so good, it's because of me. I could say, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. No, no, no. There was things you were doing in your life that needed fixing. You knew that. It doesn't even have to be the same thing. It could be something completely irrelevant, but
Yeah.
yet it plays a role in everything. And the reason why I think that way is because of out of body experiences. Once again, I don't know if I answered your question, but that, how do I do it is very natural, I guess. It's always been that way, but I think it's because I triggered that as a kid. I think it comes from
Mm-hmm.
some type of trauma, some type of trauma. The trauma of maybe feeling picked on. I noticed today, I noticed it a lot in my life. I'm the guy that will be like, oh, sorry. Like, you don't have to be sorry. I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't have to be sorry. But there's this feeling that from childhood that it must have been traumatic or something. Nothing ever really bad happened, but traumatic to me was, I was so afraid to go to school. I would come up with ways to fake sick so I didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
deal with school. Like one time I faked like falling out of my desk and I hurt my wrist, and to go to the nurse because I knew I was coming up to read next. Like I remember all this shit. Like it was like traumatic for me. Like I was that fucking scared. So like it's fun. So I don't know. I think that can play into the way we think and sometimes the way things happen to us in our life or manifest.
Yeah. So do you see it like as if it has been like an escape mechanism for you
Yeah,
in one way?
I think yes, yes. I'm gonna say yes. But the way I thought about it as an escape changed when I was like hitting my 20s, because now I was doing it because I had an ego about it. I was
Mm,
like, oh, this is a thing. Like when the internet came out, I would try to like research this, and then I saw like tons of stories of people experiencing similar things. I was like, this is fucking crazy. So like that was like, so then I wanted to be the guy to tell people how they were, because I was so experienced at them. I was the guy that can drop at the hat. When you
yeah.
when you learn about old tribes and stuff, they would leave their bodies, and the tribe would get in a formation, and they would leave their bodies and tell their masters what the formation was, what it looked like, what the pattern was, and that's how he would graduate to a shaman.
Mm,
And so this stuff was so fascinating to me when I read about it and I'd learn about it, and I'm learning about everyone else's were, some were really similar, and some I was like, oh, they full of crap, and this whole like this whole entitlement thing. So when I got to my 20s, I would induce these purposefully but with ego, and I think that created a lot of different scenes for me in that realm
mm,
too. that were sometimes scarier, a little more intense, things that, yeah. Anyway, that's another interesting, but it's the way we think that it's like, you go to heaven if you think you're going to heaven. You go to hell if you think you're going to hell. I don't know what to tell you. Like, to me, there's something to all that, I think. I don't know. But I don't
Thoughts
know.
create our own realities.
I go back and forth with this one. Sometimes I think we are, and sometimes I just, yes, we are, but maybe not, because everything contradicts itself.
Mm.
There's always something to oppose you. There's always something. When you think you got it, there's always something to show you something else.
Mm-hmm.
And can you say you're creating that? Sure. See, I was behind this concept for a while. At one point in my life, I was really behind the concept that we create our own reality. I think we create how we feel in our reality, but what's happening is already going to happen, right? You just got to kind of accept it, whether it goes your way or not. You got to kind of just accept it. It's just the way it is. And because of that, I don't know. I think it gets, okay, so for me, and this is just me, so like, yeah, like, don't hold my opinion high. But I don't know. I think when I think about it, I think it becomes an ego thing too then. Because I know how I felt it's like when you have a little ego and stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. But the trajectory changes still.
Mm.
It'll give you more of that then. And so to think that we're creating our reality, you might get that, but it might come in many forms that are not so pleasant, because now it's a sense of control.
Yeah.
I guess everything in moderation, in balance. I guess that's the answer when I think about it to myself. Like, because once again, I dabble back and forth with that idea, but let's go back to what you said earlier. You said that, whatever feels right in the moment could be the answer, right? So today I can say, I don't think about it like that. And then tomorrow I can say, yeah, it's definitely created my reality. Like, I think back to my wrestling career. I wanted it since I was a kid. I thought about it and it happened. So did I attract it? Was it just the design already? It's an interesting, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
It's a very, it's complex. So the answer to me is, the answer is, if it feels good to you to feel that way, then yes. If it doesn't, but then always be aware though, that whether you think one way or another about it, don't assume too much that's what it is, because we really don't know what this is. Like, does anybody really know what life is? Like, that's what I
Mm-hmm.
think about. We have our ideas, we have our philosophies, but how many times does your philosophy change in your life?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to me. So to say that I'm definitely creating it, it's the way it's always, what I've experienced is, here's what I've experienced. I've experienced people that I've talked to over time who've said that they thought they were creating their reality and things didn't go their way, and they were in so much more pain because they had this
Expectation.
yeah, that this is how it's gonna, so it's, there's a balancing act. Sometimes you got to be cocky in a situation. Sometimes you got to be a bit of an asshole. Sometimes you got to be, so it's like, it's all in moderation, I suppose, when I think about it all. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Good question. I do, like yourself, I go like back and forth, that there are like things that we create because we have certain thoughts about it, but also at the same time that things happen because it is part of how life at that moment should be. Either when I'm like, oh, this goes in a completely different direction, I don't want to go, life is guiding me to go into a certain situation, I feel super uncomfortable and I'm like, no, it's not the direction I want to go into, but apparently I need to go in that direction just to experience something, or maybe
Right.
meet a person or learn something, and then it's like, oh, there's another tool in my box, and then you go back to your path, and then you do whatever at that moment, and then you come across the next crossroad.
100%. Yeah, it's just that's really literally what it is, isn't it? Like when you
Yeah.
think about your life, it's like I'm in this phase. I mean, you go through so many phases. For me, phases, like when I think about phases, I think about like my music tastes
Oh yeah.
and the genres and certain, like when I was a teenager, I listened to heavy metal because I was pissed off. And when I was, like in elementary school, like I loved like love songs because I was a
Oh.
kid and I loved life. And it was funny because my brothers would be like, they'd be like, "Oh, turn this crap off!" Like, and I'd be like, "Damn it, I kind of like that." Like in my mind, I didn't want to admit it to them, but I was like, "Man, I kind of like that song." But it's like those parts, like those are like yeah, I don't know. It's all it's pretty insane.
Hmm.
The thing I think about often is that I know it can go at any point. I think about that every day, at least once a day. I'm like, dude, you can go today. Doesn't matter how you go. Could be anything, health issue. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
And something about that sounds, I guess it sounds shitty to say it like that, but I mean, for me, it's like a motivator because it does keep me aligned a little bit. Even there's times when I quote unquote don't want to feel like I want to be here on earth. Like I think we all felt like that somewhere. It's like, yeah, but I kind of don't want to miss it either. It's like
So
these little
yeah.
feelings. Yeah, it's a cool. That's why I like talking about this stuff. And to me, when we're talking about this stuff, it feels very nostalgic
Hmm.
because I feel like these are feelings we've all had. I think that's why people sometimes can get into these conversations. Some people can get deep, some people can't, I guess, just like anything. But when you do connect with people and you get deep on particular levels, it's amazing how it's all kind of crazy lingo, but everyone's kind of understanding the same language that everyone's talking. Everyone's kind of understanding, oh, I get what you're saying though. Even if the words are different or whatever, we all kind of get this vibe. And to me, that's nostalgic a bit.
Hmm.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the music, like you seeing it as a phase, I remember doing that myself too, going through different kind of styles of music, reading different kind of books. And then as an adult, I think we keep hearing like, oh, what is the type of music that you're listening to? As if you need to have like one genre. But at the same time, where you were talking, I got a picture of like a little child playing with some toys. A child doesn't start, it starts with certain toys, and then it of course grows, and then you give them other toys, and then it's going to develop in some kind of like reading books or coloring books. So all these things changes to have, to learn a child to evolve and to grow. So I wonder, like, why can we not do that as adults? Because when we are going to stick to a certain genre or to a certain book or like a certain music style, it doesn't give us much room either to explore who we are. And otherwise you're like stuck. At least that is how, of course you can have a genre for the rest of your life, but it can also be like, no, I really like this because it represents me in a certain way. I don't want to go to the next one. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. I was afraid of that. I used to, yeah, when I would think about songs, like when I'd get older, I'd get scared. I'd get scared because I'd listen to songs I used to listen to and they remind me of certain things. I'm like, oh my God, I'm changing, or it felt weird. I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, but for me, it's like, I remember going through a phase where music was like a barometer
Mm.
of like me growing because you're like, oh, I remember that song was from 1995 and it's only 1998. But like, you would remember it from being in fifth grade and,
Yeah.
and you'd, these sensation, but then for me there was a fear that came with that stuff, but music being once again like a music's fucking awesome. Music's awesome.
Do you
Sorry,
play? No,
huh?
it's fine. Do you play an instrument?
No, I wish I could. I really do. I wish I can play an instrument. um if I ever try an instrument, maybe like a guitar or something. I don't know, I gotta open up to that, because I really enjoy trying different things that I've never done before. Um, yeah, a guitar would be kind of cool, but no, I don't. What about you?
I did when I was a child. You know, when I was younger, I did like three different or four different things in the week because I was very quickly bored. So I was like doing, swimming lessons, gymnastics, and playing an instrument. And I started with like the wooden flute or what, this thing. And then I think I played it for a year or so. And then you had to choose, and then you could go for a guitar as well. But then I went to the classic. I don't know how this flute how do you call it?
What's
The flute that goes like this. I don't know how to
uh
say it in English.
the the flute that, well, I mean, are you saxophone? Are you
No,
talking
not a
about, it's a
saxophone.
flute? Are you talking about a literal flute?
No,
I don't know.
it is like a silver thing. It's quite long, and you have to.
The
Doesn't really
flute.
matter. Huh?
Isn't
Is
that
it?
the flute?
Is it called? Okay. I
Oh
had.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's a flute. And if I'm wrong, then somebody can correct on the comments below. Leave a comment.
Yeah, because in Dutch we
I
call
don't
it a
know.
different way.
Yeah.
Whatever. It
So
is an instrument. Yeah, and I really didn't like it actually. I had to go, but I didn't really like it. I think there was only one song I really loved playing because it sounded good to my own ears, and I kept playing that song over and over again.
that's cool.
Yeah, but I cannot read the notes anymore. I could. It helped me in music class because I was the only one who could read the notes, and I could always get some good figures or rates. I mean, good rates. But that is the only thing, and then afterwards I dropped it.
Yeah, anybody that can play an instrument, I think you're a badass. I really do. Anybody that can play, because it's like a learning another language. I always
Mm.
found, I guess I always admired it because I had a fear in it. Like I was like, I don't think I could do it. Like I would try. I remember like trying to do a couple things when I was a kid. My brother was a singer, so like he had instruments, and I would try with him. He tried to teach me, but it was all too intimidating to me. And see, it goes back to that trauma, right? That trauma of me not thinking. So then here I am. I'm discovering it now. The reason why, that's why conversation's awesome, because the reason why I struggle with that thought of I don't think I can do it is because I at one point didn't think I was good enough, and that was coming up. So anyway, to anyone who's watching, you saw it happen. You just saw it happen to me. But that's how it goes. That's literally, so anyway, yeah. So an instrument, if I could play one, it's not going to be the flute. It's going to be a guitar. Uh, that'd be it.
Nice. Would you be like Jimi Hendrix?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'd be definitely a rock star. Definitely some type of rock star. Talking about life though. I don't know who'd
Oh,
want to listen to the. I don't know who the fuck wants to listen to those lyrics. but but yeah, it'd be cool, man. I don't know. I think that'd be so cool to like you have a couple people and you're jamming and to know it's like to know the melodies and to do that's got to be really cool experience. It's like wrestling, like wrestling to me was like playing an instrument with my body, like where you're putting on this emotional physical performance. And yeah, and when you feel the audience, you play differently. Like when they react to certain things, you do things you didn't even think you could do. There's like a confidence that happens. And I think music is, I guess, in a lot of ways the same, or even being an artist like painting. It's like you just, once you get in this groove, it becomes more beautiful and in ways that you can't replicate. It's you know what I mean? Like that's sometimes the gold that we see through instruments or any practice like that. So yeah, I'm gonna go learn an instrument.
yeah. I'm looking forward to hear it when it
Yeah,
happens.
I'll have an album out in a few years. Just give me a few
Cool.
years.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Will
can
you
do it.
will you design the cover of your album too?
Yeah, yeah, I will.
Because you paint, right?
Yes, I do.
So
I
how long have you been painting?
My whole life. So I guess
Mm.
before my mom would teach me to draw still lifes, like a pear, an apple on the table, in the bowl. And I would do that. And I developed like a real fascination with it. And so then I started like drawing things that on paper that I would look at and try to replicate it. And there's some people that can look at something and do it exactly the way it looks. Like, there are people that are so talented where they could see it and they can make it literally look exactly the same. I was never that guy. I was the guy that can kind of do it, but it looked a little different. It wasn't really there. And then it just turned into its own thing. And art was that to me, like where I developed this style of looking at things at first and then trying to draw them, but they would always come out so different that I would see these other images that would just inspire me to create. And for me, painting is one of those things that's super sacred to me. Even talking about it feels weird to me because I really enjoy it. I get a genuine feeling from it because it was the thing I would do when I was so sad. When it was like a way to get it all out on paper. Like, I don't know, it's art is really powerful shit. It's like, I'm sure it's like, yeah, like anybody that doesn't even whether you're an artist or not, like if you're going through some shit and you just kind of start like drawing shit on a paper or whatever, a lot of stuff comes out, but you're getting it out, and I don't know, I just think art has a lot of benefits to it when it comes to therapy and helping yourself. And there's a lot of stuff in art. So so I've been doing it my whole life, and I got away from it when I got into wrestling for the first time because I was so busy wrestling. But then when I got out of wrestling, I was like, I haven't painted in a while. Maybe I should paint. And then I kind of did it, and I was like, oh, I'm not actually that bad. Like for bad in the sense of like I kind of enjoyed that. That's what I mean. Like I enjoyed that I did this, and I would make these paintings and give them away. And I don't know. I started developing. To redevelop that has been super healing because when I got out of wrestling, I think just like with anybody, when you when you've been doing something most of your life and then things change, it's an uncomfortable process because you're used to doing things a particular way. It's like this pandemic, right? Like everyone's used to doing things a particular way. Now everyone's got to stay home. Everyone's a little bit moody. Everyone's, like a little bit more lonely, whatever the case is. It's people are stuck to kind of deal with it. And so I don't know. Yeah. Art was a way for me. Art has always been a way for me to like deal with it and create and work through it and think about it and not really realizing you're doing it. And when I got to reintroduce that in my life, it was healing. It was it changed the way, it helped me change the way I continue to think as a human being, Yeah.
Nice. I don't really paint actually. I'm a person who actually more colors. So when I remember the classes at school where we had to draw because we always had like, was it for a couple of years, we were, it was obligatory to do like a drawing class for like 3 years or so, or 2 years, whatever it was. And I always had issues in drawing. I cannot do any, buildings or whatever, but I did find out that I can draw snakes. So I was like, oh, that actually looks pretty good. That's the only thing I can do, and the rest.
That's it? Is a snake?
The rest is all like, non-existent. But I'm a person who likes to color instead.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's still creative. It's still creative. Yeah. You're getting it out. Does it help you with stress or whatever?
Actually, it did, because I remember with my office job, I was working 100% in an international company, and there was like a lot of stress and a lot of things happening at the same time. And then during the weekend, I was like, you know what? I just want to color, but I had nothing on the background, so no music, no video running on the background, no TV or whatever, like pure silence and just color. So
Wow.
when I would see like a page of like a drawing, I knew what kind of colors would go in where.
Right.
So I was like super focused, and I would, you know, follow the image that I've seen in my mind, like, you know, in a way to color it. Yeah.
That's a
Like,
particular type of focus. That's cool. Yeah.
what
Colors
kind
are cool, man. What's that?
mm, what kind of particular focus are you referring to?
How you saw this image and you just started creating it.
Mm,
I always struggled with that as an artist. Because I can hold, like, I would always come in with an image in my head kind of thing, and I would start creating it, but I could never hold on to it. And it would always
mm,
change, and then I would get frustrated because I don't really remember what it was originally then. Like, I would actually just struggle with it. And so to hear someone say, yeah, I had this image in my mind and I was rolling it out, like, that's a particular type of focus, that I find interesting and I admire, only because I guess I can't do it, but it's cool. I think that'd be crazy what kind of stuff you can create. Yeah, I'm gonna have to work on that.
yeah. I don't know. To me, that comes natural. You know, and I
Yeah.
remember actually when I was a child, there was like, I think the local newspaper would have a huge drawing, like it was like once a year or so, a huge drawing in the middle of the newspaper, and then you could color it and you would send it in, and then you could win a prize. And each year I would do the same, I would just color and I always win. I
Mm.
don't know, I maybe candy or whatsoever. So the people actually the people who actually were looking at my drawing were like, well, did you color this yourself? And like, yeah. I'm a person, when I work on something, I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to hear somebody telling me, oh, you need to give this color, or you need to color it in this way. I really want to do it myself. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, sorry,
yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I
No,
was
it's fine.
agreeing with. I know that feeling. Like, they're like, hey, you should do it this way. It's like, just get out of my face right now. I'm doing the thing. Like, it's because it's like
Yeah, because it's your project.
when I was wrestling, you have to create these matches and stuff. There'd always be certain guys that would come up and try to tell me what I should do out there. Hey, you guys should do this and do that. And that was like one of those feelings where, like, I'm going over the match with this guy, we're creating some art, thinking about
Mhm.
how we're gonna do this, and creating the emotion out there. And then it's like someone coming in and you're painting and saying, oh, let me grab this brush. Hey, I think you should do this. And it's like, hey, get out of here. Anyway, I'm just kind of relating to you. I used to get really moody. I'm like, hey man, you need to leave. Like, we're trying to work here. It's
Yeah,
like,
of course. It's
because
like,
it's an art. It's a that's why art's unique, because art is so deep. It's deeper than, it's not even about if it looks good or not. It's really what means something to you. And so when someone's messing with that, that's annoying.
yeah, because it's like you put your own energy in it. It's like your own flow, and then somebody
Yeah.
else comes in and you were like, no, that's not me. I don't resonate with it. If you want to color, you get your own book, you color away and you do it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So question, when you were, going over all those over these plays with the other person that you had to go in the ring with, did you ever had, like, you worked on a concept and then you were rehearsing, and then at the time that you had to do the fight, that it did not work out as you planned? Or did, like, one of you were planning actually something different, you had to go off script?
All the time.
Oh, really?
All the time. Yeah. That's what's cool about wrestling, is that wrestling is like, and it depends, there's different levels to it, but I'll say in the most general way, it's important to be a wrestler where you don't have to always plan everything, not because there's something wrong with it, but because there's these instincts you can develop without, like, if you plan everything a particular way, what's cool about wrestling is the audience sometimes may dictate the feel of it. Not the feel of it. Let me go backwards. I'm saying that wrong. The audience plays such a huge role in it that sometimes what they're doing that you're paying attention to may not resonate a particular way. So you have to do something different in the moment to get them to either engage or whatever it is you want to do. to have them do. So yeah, there's times where that would happen. There's times when you mess up terribly and nobody even knows, but you
Mm,
think everyone think, like the boys know in the back, everyone, but like the audience really doesn't know. There's things that happen all the time. There's times when you get punched in the face, like almost knocked out, you know. I mean, there's a lot of risk that comes with wrestling, but yeah, I think that there's a beautiful art to going out there, listening to your audience, and then reacting or telling a story around the actual vibe versus what you think the vibe should be.
mm,
Um, and some wrestlers can do that, some can't. I was fortunate enough to be one of those guys who could do a little bit of everything, and that was one of the things I really enjoyed, was not always planning things. I would have like my finish, my beginning, my middle, like a little skeleton, but then I'd like to fill in the other things, possible scenarios. I would like to always think about like possible things that I know the guy I'm with is capable of, and being in creating those and feeling those in the moment. And it's a very, yeah, it's a very, wrestling's very interesting like that. A lot of people think it's A, B, C, D, and it is like when it comes to TV, but when you're going and performing in towns without like cameras on you, you're kind of just calling it out there. And it's
mm.
cool. And there's an art to that. And um, yeah, it's really, it's very organic. And there's, yeah, it's fucking awesome. Like there's nothing really like that. It's no different than when like you're dancing and two people can dance and they don't know what they're really doing, but they're just flowing. And you know, it's I feel like that's what wrestling is in a lot of ways, when it's done in a way that's synced up with your audience, and you and the other guy. Yeah, it's a beautiful art. It's a very difficult art. I'll tell you. I'll tell anybody that if you want to get into wrestling, that's a really unique art, but it's fun as hell. You just got to be able to not mind an ass whipping all the time.
Mm. Yeah,
But
how
it's
did that,
cool.
but how did that feel like? Because it is was for me. I watched actually wrestling shows when I was younger.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I think I left off when Goldberg was in. I think that was the last person.
98,
Was it 98?
99,
Yeah, I think.
99, 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right after, I think I saw him a couple of times, and then I stopped watching. Um, so in the beginning I was really like into it, and you try to connect to, not really connect, but you are like, oh, I'm going to be for this guy and not for that one, or whatever. um but still there was a question, like, how is it to receive a punch in your face, and how is it actually to give one?
Um. Yeah. It's to be punched in the face is okay. I mean, it's either hit or miss. Like in terms of we're like hitting each other, but there's a controlled motion to it, and sometimes you could be a second off and you're gonna get belted.
Mm,
Um, but there's an excitement to that where when you're in the moment, you're not really thinking about it like that. You might pop somebody and be like, "Oops, sorry, dude." Like, but when you're immersed in this art, it feels like you're in a battlefield. Like when you're vibing off of people who are watching this and cheering or booing or whatever, it all feels so real anyway, so you don't mind a punch. So to take one can be, it's not so bad. I'm one of those guys that was always like, if like I would rather have you hit me than miss me.
mm,
That's how I was. I was like, hey man, let's create an emotion for the audience. For me, it was always about the audience. I never gave a shit about what the boys thought or what anybody thought. I always cared about the audience and giving them what they're paying to see. You know what I mean? Like that was always my thought process. And so getting punched in the face when you're thinking like that is not so bad, I guess. That's a weird thought, but yeah, it's not so bad. I mean, and then to give a punch is a calculated thing. Once again, it's I always prided myself as someone who would like every night for years, I'm not exaggerating, I would punch the shower curtain, and I would try to not hit it but tip it, not make it move, but tip it every time. Not much force, but it looks like force. And when I learned how to perfect my measuring stick, knowing where my fist was going, where that was that helped me. I just think, I don't know, I really got excited to be so accurate and to train myself like that. And so there would be very little times that I'd belt people. I used to actually hit them more with forearms. Like I would also throw the forearms at people, and sometimes I'd really catch them for real, and that I wasn't too good at. So, but it was all, yeah. So that's what it feels like. I mean, to take one, it's all right. It could be really bad or really okay. For the most part, it's okay. I mean, most of the guys that you're performing with, well, they're at different levels. I shouldn't say we're all at the same level, but if you're in a particular company or you're working, everyone kind of knows each other. You kind of know where someone's skill level's at. You find ways to make these things work still, without making them do too much. So if I know a guy's a terrible puncher and he punches me once in the match and it gets a reaction, I'm probably not going to try to have him punch me again. Because if I know he's not that great at him and he got already a good reaction, why waste it on a possible one that may not be as good? From a psychology wrestling standpoint, that may or may not make sense to you as I'm saying it, but yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder, like, was it also that when you are in the middle of a fight, that the adrenaline was that high that you actually could not really feel the punch?
Pretty much, yeah. It was like that a lot. There'd be so many times where when I was getting older, when I say older, I'm talking like 28, 29, but I've been wrestling since I was 17. When I remember I started feeling it after the age of like 27, maybe, where like my adrenaline would wear off and my body would ache, my knees would ache, my hips would ache, shoulders ached, it was like, yeah, but wouldn't trade it for anything else. Like the experience and who it's made me as a man, and wrestling was my dream, and to do your dream on any level is always awesome. And yeah, it's like I love talking about it right now. Once again, it's bringing back emotions in me when I think about it, because I was so passionate about it. I was so passionate about wrestling, and where the line's got to cut somewhere, though, because your body can only take so much abuse. And for me, it always gets to the point where it's like, man, you feel you hurt, you hurt sometimes. How long can you do that until you're done? So I'm really grateful that I got to do that and to train like that. It's a very unique art. In all the ways, to come out, to have a character, for people to vibe off you, for you to vibe off them. Like they're very dreamy. And now I look back on certain things, and yeah, I look back on it and it's all like, holy cow, that was such a different Jamin. Even the confidence level I had was like through the fucking roof. Probably different than now. Like it's like I have this confidence to me, but it's like that was a different animal though. That guy was ruthless. That guy was like so focused. You couldn't knock me off my game, because I was so good in that particular field that I enjoyed it. And I don't mean good like I was the best, but I'm talking from the standpoint of I practiced it so much. It was like in my blood. Like I said, I was punching up a shower curtain every night to make sure I can get everything so fast and crisp looking that I didn't have to hurt people, but yet make it look like I'm hurting him. There's an art to that, and there's an emotion behind that. And that's the kind of shit I really enjoyed about wrestling, was the emotional connection. And by no means am I really done. It's just one of those things where you're just not going to do it forever.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see it in my foreseeable future, but I definitely always honor it, because it's given me all the tools for me to have the confidence to sit here and talk to you right now.
Yeah.
Really.
Of course, it's part of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's another question. I'm not sure. How much time do you still have left?
Hang on one second. Oh, we could do another 40.
Ah, okay, awesome. I wasn't really
Yeah.
sure. Ah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
good,
we
there
could
we
do
go. Ah, okay, all
yeah.
right. So when you were talking about animals, so do you have, like, when you look at back at yourself saying like, okay, I was a different kind of animal then, do you have like different kind of animals in mind when you were talking about the different phases that you were in life?
I never thought about it that way. That's really interesting. Like different animals representing different phases.
Yeah. Or are you using the word animal just like as in it is just like a different person, not really specific to
I
an
see what you're saying. Yeah, different person. Same, it's like the same thing, but a different intensity, a different focus. You know, like my focus now as a human is like self growth and understanding it. You know, for me, it's not even about self growth. It's more like about like, how can I test myself in a way today that's going to help me become better?
mm,
And it's not like I'm consciously thinking that. It's not like, okay, today I gotta see how I can be better. But it's more like you experience things, you react to things, you have thoughts about things, yada yada. You know. Um, so sorry, I lost my train of thought though. The question being,
different
oh, what did I mean by, yeah? It was, so I mean, yeah, different person, different person. But I do see myself. So you said, so what triggered my thought another way was like, I do see like as an energy, as a using your imagination as a tool, to imagine yourself as an animal is good, I think, in certain ways. And for me, I see myself as like a tiger or a puma. You know, for some reason those resonate. You know, it might change tomorrow, but that's what resonates right now. And so when you said different phases and different animals represent different, I was like, that's a cool different thought. Like, get kids to maybe look at their life that way. Hey, now you were a snake and now you're an ox. That sounds fun. But you get what I'm saying. It's just so anyway, you had me thinking about that. But
Yeah, no
yeah,
worries.
I was a different animals and who I was as a person. And my focus and I don't want to say the ego. Sorry, someone's got the lawnmower happening. I don't know if it's
Oh,
too
I
loud
don't
on you.
hear it.
Oh, okay. Uh, yeah, but I don't know if it's like, I don't know. It's just interesting to think back to those things, I guess, and see I was just a different thing, completely different thing. It's just interesting, but then the same in a lot of ways too, right? Like I
Mm,
was always a caring person in my own way, and I was always wanting to help people in my own way and talk about life in my own way, but different animal completely. It's just
mm,
the intensity was different.
yeah. So when you had to make a choice of stopping being a wrestler, did you feel that this was like a chapter that you closed and you were like, okay, we are going to start a completely new book?
Yeah, getting out of wrestling, fuck, was, yeah, it was, and it was very, yeah, because you're watching your ego die. You're watching, it's like you want to do these things and you work your ass off to do these things and things don't work out the way you wanted you to, then there's some different, like, then there's some injuries that come with it, and there's these things, and you start changing your mind, but then you want to do it, your mind wants to do it but your body can't, type of thing. um it was the whole thing has yeah, it was freaking tough, man. it yeah, I remember, and I won't get into it too much, but you know, I had a circumstance at WWE that just didn't go my way and it just didn't work out, and that's all I'm going to say on it, because it's so personal to me. And
Mm,
but basically, in a nutshell, for anyone who's wondering, yeah, I had a circumstance with WWE and it just didn't work out for a reason, last minute, and it was all like really traumatic for me, in the sense of like having to work through it the next day and think, all right, if you're going to get out of wrestling because this circumstance happened, what are you going to do? Who are you? And it took me forever. It took me like a year. The first year, nobody even knew this. All the closest people to me didn't even know this, but I was like drinking. They didn't even know. Like I was putting in my Coke, putting bourbon in my Coke.
Mm.
No one would know. I'd get drunk. You know, I went and got some job, like trying to like keep my mind off of wrestling. So I went and got a job at like working at like a phone call center at a bank, and you just answer these calls all day. And it started off terrible for me because I didn't understand how to speak in this world. Like it's like I'm a pro wrestler. I'm used to people admiring me, and now I got to deal with this fucking manager who like, no offense against the guy, but it's like, you know, just people that you're entitled in certain ways. You know what I mean? You go through
Yeah.
like these, you just like, what the fuck, you know, and it flipped my whole lid upside down and my ego, and took about a year for me to kind of develop this confidence to get into coaching. I don't even use the term coaching, but that's what I essentially do. I'm a personal development coach. I'm an empowerment artist is what I like to say. I just like to create ways for all of us to be better in this world, and hold conversations. And so I guess like getting out of wrestling was so painful in the sense of like watching that die. And then especially when you're in the field of like trying to help people see their own bullshit, like you have to go through your bullshit too. And then you got to be able to be honest with them in ways that they can relate, not in ways you bullshit them, but in ways like you really could relate to them. Like, hey, yeah, this is what happened to me. Get vulnerable with them. And that was uncomfortable for me at first because I still had this complex when I first started getting clients that like, oh, I have to remain strong and I'm a wrestler and I'm whatever. You know, it's like that weird ego. And then over time, when I actually started working with people more and more and more, and you're actually getting to know people and you're growing through the process and changing, you're seeing it's a lot bigger than you. It's all bigger than you. At first, I think I was doing coaching because I still wanted to make it about me, actually. When I think back about it, really, I was doing it then. And yeah, and it was like almost serving. I was just trying to say, oh, well, if I'm not a wrestler, then I'm a life coach, or you know, if I'm not, and then you actually do the work of that, and then you realize, oh, that's a lot more deeper than just about you, Jamin. You know, and over the years, I've had people that have come in my life and show me this, clients who've came in my life, people who've just changed my fucking life, and who've shown me this, and once again, that's why I'm grateful for the different filters that we see, because without all this, without making those decisions that were probably questionable, they got you there, and then this got you there, and so yeah, I'd say about a good year of a lot of pain in wrestling, and to be more exact, probably took me about 3 years to really get over it. Like, and I think I'm over it now. I'm definitely over it. I don't give a shit. But like, it's but it was but the feeling of wanting to be with WWE, you know, everybody can relate, I think, to wanting to get somewhere, and you were basically eating their steak, and then it gets taken away because of reasons that are out of your control. And there's nothing you can do about it, and it's shitty, but that's the way business works. It's the way life works.
Yeah.
And rolling with the punches, as we were saying, as you were saying. So I guess I continue to grow in those ways, and it's led me into the work I do now with people. And it's not just about helping them through their problems. Like, I hate that thought. It's like, why can't it be fucking empowering? Why can't it be about what you're doing good, and finding more ways to stay strong in the experience, and to stay optimistic, and it's like training. Like, talking is like training. You know, if you throw a punch at a shower curtain every day for 2 years, you will know something. If you talk about things that make you feel uncomfortable, you might learn something too, right? And
Yeah.
that's, or comfortable. It doesn't matter. Whatever you focus on has to get bigger. So transitioning into this has been really fucking cool, because this is a space where I feel like I can really be me. In wrestling, there was a lot of politics and things and lots of P's and Q's, and the business has changed, to be fair to the business now. But at least when I was there, was always this like game on top of my insecurities, on top of like whatever. And so you develop these patterns of thinking and these animalistic things that you do, you know, to survive, to be the best, or whatever the case is. So to kind of be in a space from that to understanding that now I left that, and nothing's wrong with wrestling, but now I'm in this space where I could really just sit here and talk. And I don't care how it comes out, and I don't care if it's good or not good. I just like being me. And that's a liberating feeling. And it's taken, I would say wrestling is the catalyst for that. Just like wrestling is also the catalyst for my confidence and growth as a human being, and to see these things and to always continue to keep on moving, because wrestling gave me those techniques through practicing and through, you know what I mean? It's so at first I hated wrestling. I was mad at wrestling, but it's like, hang on, dude, this fucking shit gave you like everything you need to be who you are. And I don't know. Yeah. So transitioning to coaching and doing that is really freaking, I hate the word coaching. Sorry. No offense to anybody out there that's a coach. Like, it's not
Doesn't
you.
resonate with you.
Yeah. It's you know, I never feel like I'm giving you an answer or something. I just really think like we're both buffers for each other to like learn. And you know, when I think of, yeah, it's just tough to hold that title, but I get it. But I'm just not that. And it feels good to say that because to me, it's so much more about fucking life, business being life, alive, real business that needs to get handled, you know. And to me, that's empowering myself and anybody I can touch. And some days you could do it and some days you can't, but it's still fucking awesome. And to have that perspective is really important to me. That's when life is fucking awesome. When you can constantly have it challenge you and you say, fuck it, I'm going to be the best I can still. Fuck it, I'm going to deal with it. All right, this is what it's giving me. I'm going to deal with it. There's no other thing about it. I'm going to just deal with it. Nothing else I can do. Deal with it. Wrestling gave me all these techniques to feel confident as a human in that regard, you know. And so to out of bodies, going back to out of bodies a little bit, and about my confidence and really what it is, you know, I'd like to, I say wrestling, but then out of bodies gave me the confidence to also understand my mind plays a big role in how I want to see things. It's all a lot. There's a lot of many different, like, there's so many different ways to go with it all. So many different truths and so many different stories within the story that makes your story the story. Like, so many. Some sound like bullshit. That's how crazy they all are. Some are like, what? That really happened in my life? What? Like, wow, okay. All kind of cool, though.
Got it. So do you have like moments when you were a wrestler that you are looking back at, as in to grasp maybe the moment of how you felt in a certain way, if not like when you were winning, or I think there was something that you're like the longest record holder. So is that something that you know that you refer back to or want to go back to when you feel in a certain way, and you're like, hey, what actually helped me was exactly that moment when I was, you know, a champion, or when you were winning a certain match?
No, not in that way. Okay, when I think about my career and when I won the championship for the first time, and those were all incredible moments. But, you know, I was always one of those guys that like had those intense, awesome moments, but I always knew there was more to be done. So it was like, I don't know if this is answering your question. Is your question, let me backtrack for a second. Is your question, do I think when I'm feeling down, do I think back to those moments to feel better?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I think about those moments in passing, like, okay, this is interesting. Yeah, so it is in conjunction with what you asked, but it's it's in a different way. I'll think about those moments just in general, or whatever comes naturally. Like sometimes I do think about my wrestling career and I smile, and the smile that it created gives me a ripple effect of wanting to do a little bit more in my day, or give me a little extra oomph of energy to like, or maybe that little like because I get these little spurts of like happiness, I guess.
Mm,
um but when I'm down, I don't think about these moments that were so extraordinary. In fact, if I think about those when I'm down, I get more sad, because then I start comparing, and I say, oh, this is how you used to be, and now look at you. Like it's, so when I'm down, I guess, like for me, when I'm down, to get myself out of it is all imagination a bit. Like not imagination in the sense of reflecting on old things, but like creating new things. There's some weird shit I do. Sometimes I'll look in the mirror, I'll get in the mirror, no one's watching, of course, but like I'll just like imagine like a light shining around me, fire and shit, like fucking shields and like. But I'm like, but after a while, I'll notice I'm making a face in the mirror, and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even realize I was making that face because I was so in the state.
mm,
Um, but that doesn't always work,
yeah.
because when I'm down, the other side of that is sometimes it's not good, and it looks darker, and it's like, oh, you're not good enough, or whatever the stuff you say to yourself. But to see that is just as beneficial, I believe, because it's making you work through it.
Yeah.
See, there's no way you can really avoid pain, huh? There's no way. But yeah, to answer your question simply, no, I don't think back, but I do think back in general on it. And I think back to um, moments and times with my friends, more about the boys backstage than the matches, actually. Like the car rides to long places, or the conversations, or the time we almost got hit by a freaking semi driving because our friend he dropped his phone and he wanted to freaking grab it, and we almost got hit. Like there's these moments you think about that, like, God, like so many crazy times, and it was fun. It was scary
Mm,
as hell, but it was like, it was cool. Like, yeah. When I think about those things, that makes me really excited. Like right now, I feel really happy thinking about that, because I've had so many intense conversations with my friends who were just as hungry as I was, who wanted to make it work, who wanted to be the best. And we were all in competition with each other, but in a healthy way, in a
mm,
way where there was no jealousy. We were this tight group of guys. We called ourselves the core. And we were just this tight group of guys that like supported each other and would watch each other's matches, and we would try to outdo each other, but in like a positive way, like who can get the crowd louder type of things. And just, but it created for an overall good show. And so when you ask me this question, I guess when I think about like this makes me feel really elated, more than the performances I did, because I was my problem was, as a performer, I was never happy with my performances, but everyone loved my stuff, but I hated it. I was like, it sucks, I could do better. I was actually,
mm,
so moments when I won the championship, I was actually picking that match apart, probably. And it almost it takes away my moment. The moments were good, but they were so not lived long, because if with the minute I got the disc that night of the show, I would wait 2 hours after the show so they can take the show, put it on a disc, and we can watch it, me and the guys all together, and critique our stuff. I would always end up, I would I would go to the house where if we're feeling good, I'm feeling like, hell yeah, freaking good match, the crowd went crazy. And then I'd watch my work and I'd be so upset. I'd be like, I thought, but it was because I guess that was the type of performer I've always been, though. That's the artist in me, I guess. Never really happy with my work. Never really. It's
mm,
like a painting. Even when I'm done doing a painting, I have to like force myself to stop painting, because it just always changes. It gets to a point where it just keeps changing. And it's like, well, you got to stop somewhere,
yeah.
And I felt like that with wrestling. I'm sorry. I know you asked a question about like something. I spinned it off into something else, but
No, it's fine.
this is how I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's
So
completely fine. When you were talking, I wondered, like, so the way how you talk to yourself, was it like a way for you to motivate yourself to get better? Not that you actually were really saying, punishing yourself. or blaming yourself, saying like, oh, you really should be better the next time. So not like that you're not going like to spiral down, you know what I mean?
How do I take it?
Yeah.
You're asking how do I, what do I say to myself in to get out of these states?
Yeah, so with what kind of energy were you talking to yourself? Like, was it for you to motivate yourself to be better the next time instead of like punishing yourself and you go actually more like in like a depressive state and saying like, oh, you were not good enough. So, on which side of the coin were you when you were talking to yourself like that?
Are you talking in wrestling or just in general? Okay,
No, in wrestling. Yeah.
in wrestling, I was wrestling. I wasn't. I was okay. So I would critique myself and I'd be very critical, but I wouldn't. But I was. I feel like I was smart enough to always know just do better the next time. You're only as good as your last performance. So, and I always knew this in the back of my mind, which I never admitted really, but I knew because I was such a stickler. I
What is
knew
a
that's
stickler?
why I was a stickler, like so, like because I was such a control freak
Oh,
in my work and the way it was perceived by me. Forget about everyone else. Everyone in the audience could be cheering. I can come back stage and everyone's like, that was fucking awesome. And then I watch it and I'd be like, I'm mad at the way I made a face there, or I'm mad at the way my body looks there. And so these feelings that were so intense was I would use it. I wouldn't have a pity party per se. I wouldn't be like, oh, poor me. I'd say, no, if you're going to be the fucking man, this is what you need to do. You need to go work on this. Oh, your punches look like shit that night. Got to do some more punches. Oh, you said a word a particular way and you could have said it better. You know, it's like, so I think it's this idea. I think for me, I think it wasn't, yeah, it was like this energy of like, always just evolve. Don't complain too long, but make sure to complain, because that was important to me. But going back to my point that I was going to say, I knew that my controlling nature in that was good for me. I knew that if I watched a match and I thought it was kind of good, I would slip as a performer. I have a belief system that when you're idolizing yourself like that, see, to me, it looks like idolizing. It feels that way. It's maybe not, but I felt like there was things, don't get me wrong, there's things I'd watch and I'd be like, I'm happy with that moment. I'm happy with the way that emotionally came across. But as a performer, for me, it was always so like detailed that I knew it was like, okay, I'm going to go back and just do it better next time. And I had that type of mental attitude. And I think because I did hold myself accountable, I was able to produce, at least at the time, some great emotional matches for people. Like it, yeah. Uh, I don't know if that answers your question on the mindset thing, but that was my mindset always. It was never
mm,
like holding on to it, but hold yourself accountable too. Like don't don't give yourself a free hall pass to get out of this, or don't say your shit was awesome. No matter how many people told me how good my shit was, oh dude, it was awesome. All my best friends, all the people I admire the most, all the people I love the most, like are telling me how great it was, but I never tried to listen to that. Because I know if I listen to that, I'm gonna think a certain way and I'm gonna not get as good. Just like if I listen to the critiques as well. Oh, you could have done this better or that. No, no, no. I know what I'm doing in my mind. Like, not that you can't listen to people. I shouldn't say that, because I really wasn't. I would listen to people's critiques, but it was the idea of like just I guess hold like once again holding yourself to a standard that helps you perform better. I think I do. And then what I thought you were originally asking when you asked the question was about life. And I kind of do the
mm.
same thing with life. It's like I still hold myself accountable for my experiences. I don't ever like at this point in my life, I don't feel like I have to be like, oh, it's this person's fault, or it's this. No, everything's my fault. Whether I did it or not, it's my fault, because it's all coming from a place of inside anyway. Perhaps if we're creating our reality, see, we can get into that philosophy again, and we don't know, right? Like but for me, I think holding yourself accountable is just like the best way to go. Like, and in wrestling, that's what I did as a performer. And in life, I do that as a human. I try.
Interesting. Because I can imagine that when people are going like through a rough time or like through like a rough situation, and then they might think back of what happened in the past, and we're like, oh, at that moment I was so confident, in that moment I was so happy, that they actually tap into that moment and bring it to, you know, to the moment that they are in right now. And
Yeah.
actually use that moment saying like, hey, I feel insecure, but at the time I was so confident, I actually want to have it back. Like, how can I get it back? So I can imagine that people all are actually looking back in their lives and saying, I want to change it. In the past I was doing things different, I was maybe more happy, and how can I change things right now to come to the same desire or the same result?
Yeah. It's a work in progress, isn't it?
Yeah.
It always
Oh
just
yeah.
continues. Yeah. And that's what's
Sure.
so cool. See, I mean, that's why I like it though, because you're always working it out.
Yeah, it is very frustrating for the mind to know that
Yeah.
there's no end. At the beginning, when you go through the spiritual path, or at least I think you have already had it since you were a child, but for me, it was the first half, not the first half, maybe the first 35 years or so, 30 years. These were all blocked. So I was like open until I was maybe age 5, and then things started to shut down, like
Oh.
blocked. So I had to get my confidence back again. So that has been my journey. Yeah, so at a point that you are actually starting to understand with your mind that there is no end, everything is still evolving, and you can do whatever and you can go wherever. It is super frustrating, but actually when you really start to understand and you not really drop your how do I say it, look at things from a different way, that you become
Sure.
more open-minded, you actually have,
Yeah.
oh, actually I'm super happy that there's no end, because then I keep learning, I can still adding, I can have another tool, I keep
Yeah.
evolving.
Yeah. It's like going back to childlike thinking,
Yeah.
because a child is learning and growing and everything seems new to the child. And I think what happens as an adult, we lose that perspective a little bit because we think we know what the experience is. And really, when we're talking about it on the way we're talking about it, self-growth or self-realization or all this stuff, even if it's a bunch of woo-woo shit, it's challenging your mind to think in complex ways that it hasn't before. And that is beneficial. And that is childlike. I mean, a child is always coming from the imagination, just
Yeah.
like we're talking. We could talk about out of bodies, all this shit, anything from out of bodies to pro wrestling to vibrational healing to whatever. And it's all still, I think there's a lot of power in it because it comes from a childlike approach of believing the imagination. I remember as a kid, I remember like believing in like monsters to the
Mm-hmm.
point where like I almost fucking would see them. Like because it was so new and so, but as an adult, it becomes more about this idea that, oh, I figured it out and now I know what this is. And I think we have all been there, and I think we've all also understood that as you get further in the game, you're really like, oh shit, I don't know shit about shit. It's like a whole
Yes.
new, it's just interesting. Yeah. So, but it always continues and
Mm-hmm.
it always evolves. And I think that's cool. Like, I love it. I love it, man. We grow up just to die. And it's all what happens in between, I suppose. Right.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
cool.
Learn as much as possible
Yes.
in that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we still have like 10 minutes left. Is there anything that you would like to add or give to the listeners?
You know, if you ever need to contact me or talk, I do free consultations where we can just hop on the phone or a video call and we can just talk about life. I don't really care what we discuss, whatever is empowering you, or if there's any value I can bring. I mean, one of the things I would say is like, just be nice to yourself every day. Try to be nice. It's a war out there. We're all
Yeah.
hurting. We're all growing. We're all stuck inside right now. So just make sure to just be nice to yourself. That's all I can say, and be nice to other people because everyone's really hurting. And there's a tremendous opportunity to be who you are every single second. And it's all just a matter of you wanting to do it or not, making that choice, as choice is the throne we sit on. So it's all in choice. And I hope like this conversation has brought some type of value, or at least something that you can walk away with that makes you just think about something differently. Not about us being right or wrong or this or that, just literally something, a way of thinking. Like there's humans out here that think a particular way. So it's kind of cool. So just, yeah, to the people who listen to your channel too, like thanks for that. And thank you for
Yeah,
being
you're
fucking
welcome.
awesome and like
Oh,
holding
yeah.
space for me to be me. And it's cool. Like this is what life's all about. You can go to my website if you're ever interested, jaminolivencia.com. You can find me on social media platforms, the 11th Warrior, 11th Warrior. And other than that, hey, let's enjoy life. We're only here for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much. I just, before we're going to close, do you want to do like another video talking more about the 11th Warrior and the poetry that you're doing as well?
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to continue any conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time and for sharing and being so open about your experiences. And I really hope that this will give some new insights for the ones who are listening. I really enjoyed our conversation, so I'm very much looking forward to the next one.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Cindy.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you. You're
very
freaking
welcome.
awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
And see you later, everyone. Thanks.
yeah. See you. Bye.